Okay, good evening. We're up to the new parak, Daf Tes on the days, the last parak in Horayos, Kayin Mashiach. If it sounds familiar, the last parak was called Horay Kayin Mashiach, and this parak is just called Kayin Mashiach.
Easier.
No, it's believe it or not, there's a Agadata tonight. Yeah. Hey. Okay. So let's just go over what we do know a little bit, right? We know a little bit that if a Yachid does an Avera, but carbon Achatos, that's Chiv Karis, they bring a Seiro or Kizba. If the Kayin does an Avera, after the Hayra, he brings the par. If the Tziva does an Avera after the Hayra of Bezdin, they bring a par. Machlokes says Bezdin bring it, he would bring it, that was a Machlokes. And if the king does it, he brings a Seir. He brings a Seir. So we have an interesting situation. What happens? He does the Avera, he's a king or a Kohen Gadol, and then he goes down. What does he bring? Or does he bring anything? So it says the Gemara, Kohen Mashiach Shechata. He did the Avera, he was a Kohen. So therefore, he was in par territory. V'yakach Avram Mimeshicha. So and then he was taken down for whatever reason. He was no longer the Kohen Gadol. What covenant does he bring? The Nasi, who usually is brings a Seir. Shechata, V'yakach Ava, Migdulasai. And then he goes down. Kohen Mashiach may be par, Nasi may be Seir. Okay, in other words, you're going after the time of the Chet, whatever state they were in at the time of the Chet. That's the Avera, that's the carbon they're going to bring. So the Kohen will bring a par, and the Nasi will bring a Seir. Okay, what about this case? Mashiach she'avar Mashiachasai. You took him down from his position. The akach chata, and he did the chait as a regular guy. The nasi she'avar migdulasai. The nasi is taken down from his position. The akach chata, and then he goes down. Kohen Mashiach may be par v'nasi kehedyet. So the chiddush over here would be the kohen still bringing a par, despite the fact that he's no longer the kohen gadol. Okay, so guys, so this it's a not a machlokes in the Mishnah, right? If we have if you according to the first, if he did the Avera, whatever he was at the time of the Avera, if he was a Kohen, if he was a king, he's going to bring the carbon that's relevant for that. What happens if he does it after he was taken down? The Kohen will still remain the par, whereas the king, the Kenig, will go from what? A Seir to a Seira. He will go from a Seir to a Seira. He'll go from a male goat to a female goat or a female sheep. Now, Fred the Gemara, Hashtu Yesh Leimar, Ava Mishichasai, Viaka Chata Mevi Par, Chata Viaka Ava Mishichasai Tzrichel Meimar. Guys, this is a thumbs up. Guys, watch. Madach, when he does the Avera, right? When he's taking down, he's bringing a par. Certainly, if he did the Avera when he was the Kohen Mashiach, he's going to bring a par. In other words, he's no longer the Kohen Gadol. Now longer he's the regular Kohen. And you tell me, since he was the Kohen Gadol, you're going to bring a par. Certainly, then what? That if he did the Avera when he was the Kohen Gadol before he was taken down, he brings a par. So it would seem to be what? You wouldn't have to tell me that case at all. That's Gemara's kasha. So it's Tzrichel Meima. And for Gemara, Mishum Diktani Gabi Nasi.
Make it right. You see.
Mishum Diktani Gabi Nasi. The Chi Avar Minisiusai. The Yacha Chata Kehedyet. Since by Nasi he goes down, Maisi Ahacha. So Avar maybe par. So I just skipped. Yacha Chata Kehedyet Maisi Ahachi Tani Gabi Mashiach Chata Yacha Chava maybe par. In other words, you didn't have to tell me this, guys. What's the reason you told it to me? For the chiddush of the king. Since the king is going down a notch, right? That's the reason for symmetry. You told me both cases. You told me the Reisha, speaking about the king and the Kohen Gadol, and the Sefer, you told me thinking about the Kohen Gadol, even though you didn't have to tell me the din of Kohen Gadol. You had to tell me the din of king, because the king went from a par to from a Seir to a Sira. So since you told me that, then you mentioned the Kohen for symmetry in the Mishnah, but not that there's any chiddush, right? You don't have to tell me that at all. Minani Mili, how do you know the par? How do you know, in fact, that the par got itaka? How do you know that the par taka he stays the same? How do you know the Kohen stays the same? The Tan Rabbanan, the Hikriv al Chatasai, the hikriv, and he will bring al chatasai. Speaking about the kohen gadol, by melamed shemebi chatasai, right? Mishavar melamed that he brings from the chait, he brings a par even when he's down. Guys, you hear? In other words, even though he's taken out from the position, chatasai is always going to bring the par. Sheyachal says dinhu. In other words, I have a kal v'chaymer or some type a limud to teach me that he brings the par. What's the limud? Uman nasi shemevi b'shigas maisa. A nasi who'll bring a carbon just by mistake without a hayra. Ein maybe chatasai mishavar. He doesn't bring it when mishavar. Mashiach she'emi b'shigas maisa el al helam dava im shigas maisa like kol shekain. In other words, guys, outside. Who is more chomer vis-a-vis the Avera? The king or the Kohen Gadol? And the answer is the king. The king just has to shigas maisa. The Kohen Gadol, you need a previous step. You needed that. And before shigas maisa, you needed that he paskin correctly. So madach, the more chomer, the king, once he goes down, right? The king, once he goes down, you're going to change his carbon. Certainly what? The Kohen, you're going to change his carbon. Right. Therefore, you had to tell me what? A pasuk that he doesn't change his carbon. Okay? Uman nasi, shemebi b'shigas ma'isa, ein maybe chatasai mishavar. Once he goes down, he doesn't bring it. 1 second. Yeah. Mashiach shemebi b'shigas ma'isa lehelm dava, and b'shigas ma'isa like calls. Okay? Tamalayim b'hikra al chatasai. Malamid shemebi al chatasai mishavar. That even when he's taken down, he brings the par. Afraid the Gemara now the other way. That he should bring the same animal. Guys, let's go the other way around. The king goes down a notch, right? But the Kohen Gadol stays the same. Who's more chomer, the king or the Kohen Gadol? The king. So now let's go the other way. Madach, the Kohen Gadol, which is more kal, stays the same. Certainly the king, which is more chomer, should stay the same. That's not. So in other words, we just flip the kal v'chomer, says the Gemara. That he should bring the same. He should still bring a seer, a goat, a he goat. Maybe b'shigas ma'isa, maybe chatas mishavar. Nasi maybe chatas b'shigas ma'isa. In addition, maybe chatas mishavar. Talmud says Hashem nasi yechta. Kishu nasi in kishu head loy. When does he bring the seer? Only when he is a nasi. But when he's not a nasi anymore, he doesn't bring the seir. So you have a pasuk, guys, chatasoi, that he always brings it. The king always brings it, even when he's taken down. And we have a pasuk over here by the nasi, that the nasi goes ahead and that he only brings the carbon when he's a nasi. Only brings the carbon when he's a nasi. Okay, very good. Says the Mishnah, up to the Mishnah on Daf Yod. Now, this is the inverse of the other Mishnah. The other Mishnah was he sinned after, right? Either at the time or afterwards. Here, before he became the Kohen Gadol or before he became the king, he did an Aveira. Good. So, Chata ad shaloi nismanu. He did the chait until he was what? He was put in that position, appointed. V'yakach nismanu, and then he was appointed. Hari elu ke'ayotis. We go after the time of the chait. If at the time of the chait they were regular Joes, they're going to bring a seira or a kispa. They're not going to bring a par and a seir. Reb Shimon Oimer, in noida lahem, actually nismanu, if it became known to them until loy nismanu chayavim, then they'd be chayiv to bring the regular carbon. Umish nismanu, however, if they're informed once they're appointed, then peturim, then they'd be pata. Says Rashi. Reb Shimon Oimer, if it becomes known to them the chait, actually nismanu chayavim. The Reb Shimon, he doesn't go after only chait. The Reb Shimon chata v'yediyah boy. We had this early in the Masechta. He needs the chait and the knowledge of that chait. For who are din the polig Reb Shimon bereisha, and even Reb Shimon would argue on the previous din. The tani nasi shechata v'yakach ava migdulasai. The nasi that first did a chait and after was taken down, maybe seir. He brings the seir. That's not true. Why? Let Reb Shimon, because he only found out afterwards. Then you need the idea and the chait at the same time. The Rav Shimon Kamenami dim noidel mishavar. If before he was taken down, he became known, then they may be sayer the chatas v'yediyah by kashun nasi. The Rav Shimon would say the im noidel loy mishavar. If he finds out after he was taken down, he won't bring it. So in other words, the previous Mishnah that said that he's going to go ahead and bring a carbon, he would disagree. Because if he did the chait before and you found out afterwards, you'd be pata, according to Rav Shimon. So
Totally?
yeah, no, you'd be pata. He says paturin. That's what he says. That's what he says pata. Minani mili. How do you know the Tan Rabbanan? Am I koyin Mashiach yechta? What? Eza nasi. It's melech. Like we know until now, nasi is the melech. Shneimar mikol mitzvah Hashem alav. She'ein al gabav el Hashem elokov. That only HaKadosh Baruch Hu is above him. That's. I saw something interesting that it's mashma anyone who would be above him. Anyone. This din doesn't have to be a king. Anyone who's in first place, president. I mean, if you'd be in first place, you'd be the highest place in Judaism. You would have a shaved head. Let's say biggest shaved. I don't know, but he'd also be. This din would apply of seir. Minani milei ton rabbanan. Im hakohen Mashiach yechta prat lekodemes. Okay, if the kohen Mashiach does a sin yechta, it means he does a chait when he is in a state of anointment, but not beforehand. In other words, we're asking a kasha. How do you know the kohen gadol, if he does a chait before he's the kohen gadol, he's not chayiv? Minani mili. How do you know that he's not? Now he's the kohen gadol, and he finds out he did an avera. How do you know he doesn't bring a par? We had the other way around that if he was taken down, he still brings a par. So how come over here? Because it says it's the in my kohen Mashiach. This is the pasuk. The kohen Mashiach yechta. What does yechta mean? He does an avera. He's doing an avera in his state of Mashiach, kohen Mashiach. But if he's not Mashiach yet, if he's not anointed yet, you're not going to bring it. If he's not anointed yet, you're not going to bring it. Prat l'kaidmais. It's a prat what to an avera done before. V'alei dinhu. It's l'cheretz din. Uman nasi, shemevi b'shirgas maisa. A nasi again is more chamed than the kohen gadol because he's going to bring his carbon simply by shirgas maisa without a hayra beforehand. Ein mevi al hakedemes, he's not going to bring before Mashiach she'ein mevi el ahalam dava im shirgas maisa, who is more kal because you need hayra in addition to shirgas maisa. Ein adin shleyavi el hakedemes. So why would you need a pasuk? Why would you need a pasuk? I'll tell you why, because I have another way. Lo yamamit b'nasi shekain ein mevi chatasei mishavar. If the nasi, once they take him down, he's not. He does a chait when he's taken down, he's not going to be chayiv. Time Mashiach shemevi chatasei mishavar. This once if he did a chait and it's taken down, according to the previous Mishnah, he's going to bring what? He's going to bring a hedyet. And according to the kohen Mashiach, he's a par. So Memela. On one hand, the nasi is more chamer. On the other hand, the nasi is more kal. If you're going to look at the act of the action, the nasi is more chamer because it only takes shigas maisa. On the other hand, vis-a-vis a carbon, it's more chamer the kohen Mashiach because if he's taken down, he's going to bring a par with the nasi is not going to bring. So since he's more chamer, more kal in that direction, I might think why you bring on kademes. Talmud Leimar. HaMashiach yechta, chait kishu Mashiach. Maybe if he's chata kishu Mashiach, if he does a chait when he is anointed, hedyet ain't a maybe. Right? If he does a chait when he's a hedyet, ain't a maybe. So if he did the chait before he was anointed, v'tanya nami gabi nasi, the same thing by nasi ki gavna. Asher nasi yechta prat l'kodemes. Right? The nasi yechta he will do an avera, meaning he'll do an avera as a nasi. He'll do an avera as the king, but not an avera what as a. There's no such thing. Kohen Mashiach. It's not elections.
No, I'm saying he's appointed.
Again, what does appointed mean? I want to ask you a question. Mashiach is going on the Kohen Gadol.
Right.
What? Harold, talk to me. Harold, you can't flip the script here, baby. A little too old for that. But I know, I thought you was thinking about that. Maybe it was a king that had to be anointed because
that's what I was thinking.
I know.
That's what I was.
I'm giving you the anyway. Okay. Ashenasi yachda pratlikaidmais. Balei din hu uma Mashiach shemevi chatasi mishavar. he's going to bring the par when he's taken down. Aina maybe al kodmos will not bring par on a very did before. Nasi she'ein maybe chatas mishavar. He's not going to bring a carbon once he's taken down. Aina din shlo yavi al kodemes. So why do you need a pasuk? I'll go the other way. Malam Mashiach Shkein Ein maybe should be good smaisa. Tamim Venasi should be smaisa. So notice that's Tchumra. Hoil maybe should be smaisa. Yavi al Kodmos. So therefore, since you don't have a Kal V'Chaim, because I can flip it the other way. Tamid Leimar Asher Nasi Yechta Shechata Variu Nasi. Only if you did a Chayim is Nasi, but Shechata V'Oidehu Edyet. So no, it's the same limud. Ki Agavna we have by Nasi as we did by Kohen. So by Kohen it's the lashon Asher in a Kohen Mashiach Yechta, and by the king, it's Asher Nasi Yechta. The Lashon guys is a little funny, guys. If you look in Vayikra Dalid, if you look at it says in Kohen Mashiach, right? It says Vayikra Dalid. It says in Kohen Mashiach. The Lashon is if. The Lashon's if, but by the Nasi it says the Lashon Asher. It says the Lashon of Asher. So the Gemara is now going to go ahead and digress and focus upon that lashon, the lashon of Asher, because it says lashon of Asher. Good, says the Gemara, and with the darshan Asher is Ashrei. Tanabanan Asher Nasi Yechta Yachol Gazra. I might think that what it says, if it doesn't say Im Hanaz, guys, Asher, you could touch like this: when the Nasi sins. So mashma that what Gazra, that was guys that he sins. Talmud Leimer Im HaKoyin HaMashiach Yechta. If Ma'ala Halam by the Koyin l'sheyechta, when Afkan l'sheyechta, if Amamar Yachol Gazra says you might going back over the Baisa, you might think that what was Geyser that he's going to sin. Geser Mehechi Tesa Amri in Mehechi Tesa that it's going to be bad. Forget about Bechira. Forget about Bechira. Like that, every person has Bechira. But where do you have a Kadosh Baruch Hu in the Torah saying something's going to be bad, right? So it's mashma over here. Asher Nasi Yechta. That's right. Says the Gemara in Ashrin Dechsiv V'Nasati Negat Saras Bebayis Bebeis Eretz Achuz Aschem. Okay, and you find out what there is a Saras, a Negat Saras Bebeis Eretz Achuz Aschem. Besuri Hilahem. Hashem is telling you, you know what's going to happen. Shnegoyim Boyim Alayim. That Negoyim are coming to you. So this is an example of a bad thing. Now the Taisus of Rush brings out it's not totally a bad thing, because one of the reasons this happens is that they used to hide. They'd hide treasures in their walls, the Goyim. So what would happen? You'd have a house with a nega in it, and you knock down the house. It's like when I bought my house. I had a house. Remember that? Yeah. Crazy story. I bought my house in 1999. I bought a house across the street from me. It's a big old Victorian house, and of course you do construction. So I started knocking down the walls, and what do you find behind the walls? All the material that the previous construction guy had left there. They left there. So I found I found 2 beer bottles from 1896. 2 beer bottles. They're porcelain. It's a beer bottle, a porcelain top with a thing in the bottom. 1896. So you never know what you're going to find when you knock down walls. So Mela, that's over here happened. So L'chayr, Taisus Rush points out, it's not totally bad. It's not as bad. It's not as bad as a kohen, as a person doing an aveira, because again there was a good thing to it also. As I state in Taisus Rush. Okay, Reb Shimon Aimer. Reb Shimon says when it says v'nasati negabet saras prat lenige einsin. This would exclude negoyim that come as a result of einsin. Rashi says shadim. Let's say you'd have a shade that would put nega, the house would be tamei. The house will be tamei. Up now, so Lav Amar of Yehuda Besura, the Rabbi that you're informed of what that's of a bad thing happening. Hachanami by the king, Ema Gezerahu, Hilcha Kosevim. Therefore, it says what by the since therefore you think a bad thing's going to happen. Therefore, it says what no Im by the Kohen Gadol to tell you just like the Kohen Gadol's if so too what by the king it's if. Says Rabbi Shimon Nagi Anusim Milamitama. So now digresses. Rabbi Shimon said that the Goyim of Anus is not Matama the house. I'll ask you a question about Tanya. Okay. Okay, let's see this pasuk. Adam kiyeh be'or b'sarai se'es oy sapachas oy beheres. If a person will have in his skin some type of blotch of tsaras, v'hoye be'or b'sarai the negat tsaras. If you're brought to the kohen, or one of them, the kohen will pronounce. He'll take a look at it. So what are we darshan? Adam kiyeh min adibur ve'elach. In other words, if a person had a tsaras before Matan Torah, and then it's after Matan Torah, it's not a tsaras. It has to be Adam Kiyiyeh. When will it be? After Matan Torah. So it could have the same skin affliction, and it could be Be'emes is tsaras. But as we know from tsaras, until the Kohen says it's tsaras, it's not tsaras. Right? You know, it's a fascinating halacha. If the Kohen doesn't know what tsaras is, but there's someone who does, he has to tell the Kohen, and the Kohen just says it's tsaras. Right? Emes Chaim, right? Right? Yeah. So you need a Kohen to say it's tsaras. The dermatologist can't. Right? Dermatologist can't. Anyway, so this is if he sees kiyeh min adiba before the diba, v'aloy dinhu, tamei bezav, it says tamei bezav, tamei bin negoyim. Mazav min adiba ve'elach, just like zav is after Matan Torah, after negoyim min adiba ve'elach. So lo yamam bezav, shekain emetama ba'inus. A zav, we know if a zav jumps or anything, like we toilet that it came as a result of a sickness or jumping or something, it's not a zav. Tamei bin negoyim shemetama ba'inus. Why do you say that? What? That's metama ba'inus. So this is, and Rashi says, how do you know the goyim by Adam is matama ba'inus? Let's say a person falls, or a person hits something, or he gets burnt, and he has the gas, you are tame. And this is going to be the problem. You see that what? Just like Adam, the Havamin is the house is the same way. And this is going to be the kashan of Shimon. Guys, don't lose Labias, don't lose the trail. Shimon said a din, right? Shimon said that Saras not tam ba'inus. We're proving now that ba'inus by Adam it is tamei, and if that's tamei by Adam, it's going to be tamei by house also. Talmud loyma Adam kiyem in adiba ve'elach. Bottom line is you have a kasha. What's the kasha? You see, how can Shimon say that it's not matama? You see by Adam it is matama. So Rav Amar pratlin nigei ruchos. Rashi upper left. Rav Amar 4 lines down. Rav Amar loy kasha. The kasha that you're saying now, from what? From house to what? To person. Person is matama, not matama adam, yes. Had the kamar of Shimon pratlin nigei einsim kigoin nigei ruchos. It's in the goyim of the spirits. The al yedei nefichas shade. V'loy al yedei adam. It's not through adam. It's through shade does it. That's why it's tahar. The chikatani time ben goyim shematama b'oinis kigoin al yedei akol kfiyah. In other words, there's 2 ways this teras can be there. The teras can be there through a shade, or it can be there through an action, and it's an oinus. The person burnt himself, a person fell, and as a result of getting a skin infliction, it developed into teras. Then, einachinami, that oinus is going to be what? It's going to be tamei. Masha'enkein. If in fact the person, it came as a result what of a shade, that's what Shimon said it's pata. Okay, so that's the Rapapa Amar, same type of teretz, probably in the Goyim Kshafim, that comes as a result of magic. Harabanan. Okay, now darshaning the pasuk. Pasuk says, Ashenasi yechta, v'asa achas mikol mitzvah Hashem alakav, ashaloi sesenu, bishkoga ve'ashem. Now the pasuk Asher is a funny lashon. Asher nasi yechta prat l'chayla, right? Mashma that prat l'chayla, that if he's sick, that if the king is sick and doesn't have a raised pata, which is kind of funny. It says just because he's a chayla, you should push him off out from the nesiyus. So it means not that he got sick and we took him down. I didn't mean that he didn't have a. I mean, we're taking him down from the nesiyus. If he gets sick, he's going to still be the king. If he's a mitzvah, we're going to take him down. How do you know that? Shneimar, it says by Uziyahu, Vayinaga Hashem es melech. Right, he got saras. He was a mitzvah till the day he died. V'yeshe bebeis hachavshis, and he sat in the house of chavshis. V'yosem ben hamelech al abayis. He had to come to bebeis hachavshis. Mechlal dad hashta eved have. When it says he sat in the house of freedom, guys, it's a funny lashon. He sat in the house of freedom, correct? And mashma until then he wasn't free. He was an eved. Ki hodra of Gamliel Rabbi Yeshua. You see that a person who is in a position of prominence is meshubit to the people. He's an eved. He's meshubit to the people. Where do you see that? Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Yeshua, Havi Azla b'sfinasa. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Yeshua, they were going on a boat.
The
But
Nasi, right?
what?
The Nasi, right?
Who?
Was your criminal enough?
Rabbi Gamliel was the Nasi, yeah. Rabbi Gamliel was the Nasi, and Yeshua was the Abbesdin. And they were going, Rabbi Gamliel Havi Pita. Rabbi Gamliel had a Pita. Bahadei. Rabbi Yeshua Havi Pita b'silsa. He not only had a Pita, but he had what? He had flour and I guess other ingredients to make a pita. Shalom pita der Gamliel. What happened was the trick took longer than they anticipated, and Gamliel his supply ran out. The pita that he had ran out. Yes.
Pita meaning pita, like a falafel pita?
Like a pita, yeah. That's where it comes from.
whole
Yeah,
pita.
pita.
Okay.
Al stein Gemara Reb Nassim.
Shleimus falafel.
Shleimus. Yeah. So this is a pita, right? So he finished off his pita, the bread, and Rabbi Yeshua had, in addition to the bread, the pita, he had ingredients. He had silas and whatnot. So Shalom pita to Rabbi Gamliel and Samach asalte to Rabbi Yeshua, and he was getting sustenance from what? From the silas that Rabbi Yeshua brought along. Amalei. So Rabbi Gamliel told Rabbi Yeshua, "Mi habi yodis tahabi leikuva kuli hai." The us is sulsa. How did you know the trip was going to take so long that you went ahead and you brought the silas along? So Amalei. So Rabbi Yeshua told him, listen to this. Koichev echad the shivim shana. How's Haley's comment? How many? Every 70 years? Okay, here's the blog, baby. Listen to this. He goes, every 70 years, Oila umeta es hasafanim. This comet comes up every 70 years. You know what it does? It famishes the navigation of the sailors. They always go according to the stars. The stars. And this thing messes it up. V'amarti said Rabbi Yeshua, Shema Ya'alev Yisai Aitzanu. Maybe it's going to come up and make things a little interesting. So Amalei. So Rabbi Gamliel was the spoil. He said, Kol kach biyadcha. So much you have going for you. You're such a brilliant person. V'yata oile b'sfina. In other words, Jesus, why was he going on the Sfina? He wasn't going. Yeah, he wasn't. This wasn't the Queen Mary. This wasn't. He wasn't Royal Cruise, right? Right. He's on the ship. Ships were dangerous, guys. You went for a ship for Parnassa. It's not like some guy he knows will take a trip anywhere, any time, right? No, you're not a trip guy. Not a boat guy.
How you get the scuba?
Oh, you gotta go on the boat.
Anyway, no, but not a cruise ship.
No, it's not a cruise ship.
Okay.
You
Amalei.
can only go down.
So listen what Rabbi Yeshua told Rabbi Gamliel. Achata tamalai. You think I'm so special that you're wondering that I have to go for parnasa? Tama al shnei talmidim sheyesh lecha biyabasha. 2 talmidim that you have on dry land. Rabbi Elazar Chasma, Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgada. Sheyoidim l'shair. Guys, listen to this. They're able to evaluate kama tipas yesh biyam. They can evaluate how much drops of water there's in the sea. And they don't mamish have what to eat. What unbelievable. So nasan daita like shiva and barash. So what did Rabbi Gamliel decide to do? He's going to put him barash. He's going to put him up atop. Kishala shalach lehem, when he came into dry land. Shalach lehem. Rabbi Gamliel sent for Rabbi Elazar Chasma and Yochanan ben Gudgada. They didn't come. Chazav shalach a second time. Ubo, they came. Amalehem. Kimedum ma'atem sheshara ni noisin lechem. I'm at base. You think I'm giving you what? Shrivis, I'm giving you high positions. That's why you're avoiding me. Avoid ani nasalachem. I'm giving you you're being an evet. Shnemar. Vayidabro you love leimarim hoyu siya eved la'amazeh. So in other words, if just because you think you're getting a high position, you're going to be in a position of what? Of being meshubah to others. But they say there's certain rabbanim, they don't sleep. They 1 o'clock in the morning the day begins. They never sleep. They're busy. What? All the time. Yeah. Oh, it's a famous Maisa. Reb Moshe. This person was a Letz. And he called up, he decided he's going to call Reb Moshe with a shayla like 3 a.m. in the morning. And he called up and he said, I have a shayla. You know what Reb Moshe did? He said, wait a second, I have to get dressed and wash my hands and say Berachas HaTorah. The guy was so blown away. He was so blown away. The guy was like, he changed his whole life, that one conversation. Yeah, that's the kid with the crank call. That's the crank call. Yeah, that's the kid with the crank call in the middle of the night. That's the story with the crank call. Yeah, crank call, and then it changed. Unbelievable. Okay, Tanabanan. Asher Nasi Yechta.
Okay, cool, I did.
Tanabanan. Asher Nasi Yechta wasn't Asher. Amar Ami Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai. Right. So Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai says Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai. Ashrei Adar Shanasi Shaloi maybe Karbonai Al Shuga Goslei. Fortunate. We listen to Ashrei, guys, not Asher, but Ashrei. Fortunate. Fortunate is the generation that the Nasi will bring. He's not a Balgaiva at all. He doesn't hate. He'll bring a carbon. And Nasi Shaloi may be carbon. Sarachat Aloim Mahedjit. And if he's going to bring what's the influence on a Hedjit, the Mashiach Goslei may be carbon. Sarachat Aloim Mahu Sedainai. The kind of shuv is going to do a Zodin. So therefore, there's don't. That's Ashrei, a lotion of Ashrei. Maskif lo Rava Berei Rabba Elamiyata. You're telling me the Ashrei is anytime it says Asher, it's mashma. It's a lotion of fortunate, right? I'm going to bring you places where it says Asher, and it's certainly not Ashrei. Like Maskif lo Rabba Berei Elamiyata Dechsiv. V'eis Asher Chota min hakodesh Yishalem. That by Asher. In that he goes ahead and he was moil behegdish. He took away. He's going to go ahead and pay. You're going to tell me that's right? Fortunate is the guy who's moil behegdish. Will be Yeravim ben Nevat, the Russian Marusha, who was Machta, the first melech of Yisrael. The Chsiv Bey Asher Chota, Asher Hechta. It says about him that he sinned and he caused us to sin. You can say Ashrei, Achanami the Ashrei Adarhu. Fortunate is the generation of Rechavam. It says Shani Hacha the Shani Kabedibura. It's different. There it's Mishana. In other words, in Koina Mashiach Yachta, Asher Nasi Yachta, Pirish. If it just says the word Asher alone, it's not Ashrei. When it should have said something else, like it said in this case, in Koin Mashiach, that's the parsha. Then the next parsha is Pelim Dover, and the next parsha is what is the Nasi. It should say what? Imay Nasi Yachta. Why are you being Mishana from Imta Asher to Darshan? Ashrei is the generation that has such a leader. Darsh of Nachum Achista. My Dechsiv. Yesh Hevel Asher Nasa Al Aretz. I have to read the whole pasuk over here. Here's the pasuk in Koheles. Yesh Hevel Asher Nasa Al Aretz. Asher Yesh Tzadikim. Asher Magiyim Aleim K'masei Rishayim. The Tzadikim that reaches them like the Meiser Rishayim. V'yesh Rishayim Shemagiyim Aleim K'masei Tzadikim. And the Rishayim that's Magiyim Rashi Tzadikim. Amarti Shegam Zeh Havel. It says that what? That it's Havel. So now we're going to dash in this pasuk. Okay. Ashreyem L'Tzadikim. Shemagia aleim k'maiser b'shoyim. Fortunate are the tzaddikim that's magia aleim maiser b'shoyim shaloyim haba ba'olam hazeh, right? That they get in this world, they're getting the way that the b'shoyim are going to punish in the next world. The tzaddikim are punished in this world. So in other words, when they come to the next world, they totally reign. Oylahem l'b'shoyim, mo to the b'shoyim shemagia aleim k'maiser tzaddikim shaloyim haba ba'olam hazeh. They get whatever they get rewarded in this world. That's it. But they're not going to be zeicha to anything beyond that. Amarava, but what's tzaddikim? Tzaddikim have to go ahead and suffer in this world. They can't have the best of both worlds, literally. Friday the Gemara. So Amarava, atu tzaddiki achli trei almi misanile. Is it bad that you should have two worlds? I mean, dafka they have to have a bad world. No, it's not true. El Amarava, ashreim with tzaddikim shemagim aleim kimaiser v'shayim shalayim hazeh ba'olam hazeh. Right. The fortunate are the tzaddikim. They get in this world like what? Like the Rishayim in this world, which is good. However, the tzaddikim who suffer in this world, it's bad for the Rishayim who are going to suffer that way as well. Rav Papa, Rav Huna, Bereid Vishua, Asla Kamed the Rava. They came in front of Rava. Right? Amalahu, Rava said, Ukimta mesechta plon umesechta plon. So Rava said that you go ahead and you're experts. Did you master these certain mesechtas? Amalei. So both Rav Papa and Rav Yeshua and Rav Huna, Rav Yeshua said, yeah, we have. So then he said, Itru porta. Did you get a little money, a little gelt? So Amulei they did. The Zovin Katina Da'ara. We bought a little piece of land, and therefore that provided for us. So Kari Alayu, Rabbi said, Ashreyim l'tzadikim shemagim aleim k'maiser r'shoyim shalom hazeh b'olam hazeh. They were zoichet to both, right? They were zoichet to having a little painos in this world, and in addition, yeah. So Papa was a rich guy, right? So it's Gemara in Pesachim, Kufyud Gimel. Look at there, Pesachim Kufyud Gimel. Papa got wealthy through beer. Papa became a beer, became very wealthy. So this Maisa took place before he became Rosh Hashiva. Rosh Hashivas became wealthy. That's why he wanted to go ahead and appoint Rav Gmil wanted to appoint Rav Alasa Chasma and Yeshua ben Good Gada. He wanted to appoint them that should be able to get money. They should get money. So that's the answer to the question. But look at Pesachim Kufyud Gimel. This is Rav Papa, how he got his money together. Okay, I'm giving you my makam. Amar Rabba Baruchana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, my diksiv, ki yesharim darchi Hashem b'tzadikim yechubam u'poishim yikashlu b'hem, mashal l'shnei b'nei adam shetzolu p'schayim. You have two people. What do? They both go ahead and they broil the korban Pesach. Echarach l'shem mitzvah, one goes ahead and eats l'shem mitzvah, v'echarach l'shem achilas gasam. One person fresses, zeh shach l'shem mitzvah tzadikim yechubah. He would be an example. You can do the same thing, but one person is going to be a mitzvah, the other person is going to be what? It's going to be a nichshel for that person. Amalei Reish Lakish said Reish Lakish, right? Rasha Karilei. Just because the person ate for Chilagasi, and call him a Rasha. Nehidlayav mitzvah min amufcha. Good, he didn't do the best mitzvah, but Pesach milay ka'achal. Did he not eat a korban Pesach? L'chari he did. Al mashal shnei ben yadam. It's a mashal two people. Say ishtay b'achaysa ima b'bayis. Say ishtay achaysa b'bayis. Is damin lo ishtay. One gets his wife. V'echel is damin lo achaysa chalila. He ended up with his sister. Sheshin is damin lo ishtay is tzadikim yalchu bay. And zed is damin lo achaysa u'pashim kashlu bay. What kind of comparison is that? Anu karminon chada derech. They're both in the same derech. Here you have two separate derechim, two separate houses. So it's not a good comparison. El mashal loitu shtei b'naisav. The mashal is to Loit and his two daughters. Heimshin is the same mitzvah. They again, the Maisa with Loit and his daughters. They thought after the destruction of Sodom that the world was destroyed. They thought the reason that they both survived, two of them survived, was one to have a boy and one to have a girl, and they would go ahead and repopulate the world. That's what they thought. They were with their father, and they both had boys. But because in fact the world was intact, and that became Ammon and Moab. So Loit, he was mechavin for an aveira, so he is nechshul, and they were mechavin for a mitzvah. They're considered tzadkaniyos. And we spoke at the famous Meister of Moshe. It's on. El mashal Loit ushtei b'naisav. Henshin eskab l'shem mitzvah tzadikim yalchuba. Hushin eskab l'shem aveira u'poishim yikashlu b'hem. So Balaturim says a beautiful thing, guys. Guys, what's the implication? I'm in a moyav. Can they come and call Hashem? Amoni v'amonis can come and call Hashem? Says the Balaturim. Loit, that was mischavin what? For Naveira, the male issue. The daughters that were mechavin. Guys, you here? The daughters were mechavin. That's why the female can come in. Balaturim. Okay. Says the Gemara. B'dilma hu nami l'shem mitzvah mechavin. Maybe he was mechavin l'shem mitzvah. Rabbi Yochanan kol pasuk say l'shem averi nama. What does the pasuk say? Vayisa lo deseina vayaris kol kikra yadin kikula mashka. It was all irrigated. L'fnei shachas Hashem esadon v'samoira. That's what the pasuk says. So by darshan vayisa lot vatisa eishes adayna v'seinecha. That's by what? By eishes Potifar. So you see the vayisa and vatisa. Okay, so that just like that was an avera. Lot was an avera. Eseinov vayisa eseinov. Shimshon says to his parents, take this Palishti girl for me, kihi yasher be'enai. So you see the enai is looking lashon of yeah.
But without this, you could darshan note this being a Russia because he was ready to give up his daughters, to the.
Again, that's they find look at the Ramban there. The Ramban says that that's why he ended up with them. He was mida k'neged mida, since he was willing to offer them up because the snus wasn't so far in his eyes. But here we're finding from the lashon of the pasuk that's a svara. Well, here we say mamish the words itself. Vayar es kol kikar yardein says vayar oisa shchem ben chamar es kol kikar. All right. Then the pasuk says es kol kikar yardein ki isha zoyna at kikar lechem ki chulei mashke was all irrigated. Elcha achrei me ayavai. Noisne lachmi umeimait samri upishtani shamni b'shikoyav. So lashon of mashkin shikuyav. Tried the Gemara Vamenim on this. He was sleeping. What do you mean? How can you have? He was sleeping lot. So the Tana Mishnah of Yossi Rabbi Chayni Laman Naked Al Vav Shebet Kaima Shel Bechira. And right when it says Bekaima, when he got up, it says a Vav. Loy Melcha. No, he was with the older and the younger. So it says by the older when he got up, there was dots on the top. If he should be shikful yada, when he lied down, he didn't know because he was drunk. Al Vav Bekaima. When he got up yada, he knew what he did. Tried the Gemara. My Havel Mevid. My Dahava Have. What have a have whatever happened. Nafkamina the next night, he shouldn't have drank anything. So the fact that he drank the second night, that's his next show. Dorish Rabba, my dichsiv, it says, Och nifsha mikiryat oiz, uminyonim kivriach armoin. Okay, ach nafshi mikiryas oiz, eloit, shepirish mi Avram. Umidyonim kivriach armoin shehitul midyonim ben Yisrael amoin. He put a lock between Yisrael and Amoin. Shnemar layavi amoini umavi b'kal Hashem. Dorish Rabba v'item Rav Yitzchak my dechsiv l'savas yivakesh nifrod b'chol teshia yiskola that says that he isolated himself to go ahead and fulfill his tithes. He'll be exposed. The taivi yivakesh nifrod zeloit shenifra me'avram b'chol teshia yiskala sheniskala koloinoi. Right, but the Knesset is Bati Midrashos. Everyone knows that he was the father of the child. Ditnan Amoni Ma'ovi Asurim Yisraelim. V'Ama'ula Thomas Insa v'Zimri Zina Thomas Insa Yatzim Imenu Malachim Neviim Zimri Zina Naflu Kamar Voice Yisrael. You can see the same action. She was Mechav L'Shem Shemayim. She was like to have the Malchus come from her. And Zimri, we know what happened over there. Okay, we'll stop over here.
Who says Horayos is so hard?